Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you on this, well, it looks a little overcast, and we had a thunderstorm roll through about 9 o'clock. And Margie, I had the dog just about in my lap during the thunderstorm.
Not on top of your head?
No, I wasn't in bed at that time.
Oh, okay.
So he was either under my chair or trying to get in it with me. And there's not room for both of us.
Are you sure he's not Scooby-Doo?
No, well, he's about that size, I guess. He's about 110 pounds.
Yeah.
So he's not one you want on top of you. All right. Well, I will tell you, it's a new day, and the election is over. The primary election for 50th District State Representative, and also the other races. There wasn't a lot on the ballot.
Nope. And I mean, it's almost like people were just, I don't know if like they were ignoring it or it just didn't seem to make an impact because you didn't hear much talk.
No.
That was surprising to me, and and the number of people who didn't vote. Our turnout was
pretty thin.
Yeah, 15% or somewhere around there.
But we had presidential races on there, but actually, for a primary, Kentucky really is not a real primary state. Any votes that were cast yesterday really don't make any difference because we know who the candidates, or we know pretty well who the candidates are going to be for each party.
Well, that is true, but it still is pretty abysmal lack of citizen involvement. I mean, you're letting 15% of the people determine who's going to be on the ballot in November.
Well, I think if the state representative primary had not been on the ballot, we would have seen even fewer votes.
Probably.
All right. Well, we're joined in the studio by a very special guest, Candy Massaroni, who won in a landslide over her challenger, Andy Stone, to keep her seat in the state legislature as 50th District State Representative. And, Candy, you were considered a freshman, and I think the general thinking is that first-term legislators are the easiest to defeat as an incumbent than seasoned people have been in office for several terms. But I tell you, you're only as a member of the House in Kentucky, you're barely there before you have to worry or consider campaigning again. But anyway, tell us your thoughts. I was at the clerk's office, and again, kudos to
Jeanette.
Jeanette Sidebottom and her crew, the election crew. They were wonderful, and they were accommodated the media, put up with us, I should say, and we all had a good time. It was kind of a late evening. There were a couple of little problems that cropped up that kept us at the office a little longer, simply to wait for the final printout. They had all the totals, but they couldn't actually print out or do the official tallying and I guess send it to the state until they had everything lined up, and that about 8:30. That's when they got all that wrapped up. So anyway, my son and I were up there and chit-chatting and BSing with the sheriff and the other some of the workers up there while we all waited. Anyway, but they do a great job, and my hat is off to the whole crew. And I hope they're getting some well-deserved rest today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is a good time for us to just thank all of those volunteers.
Oh, absolutely.
And people who work at the polls and who, in some cases, endure abuse from people for doing their job. And we just owe a big thanks to all of the volunteers and to the election commissions in each county who are there from 6 o'clock in the morning to whenever after the polls close and everything's been turned in. And it's and I've done it before. It's a long day.
Right, and the poll workers had to go to the clerk's office as well at the end of the night. So and I will tell you, the unsung heroes here in my book, Nelson Fiscal Court. They approved the purchase of printers that would print ballots. So when you went to vote, they printed your ballot on demand.
Yeah.
And that, now in the past, and I remember, and I've got pictures of it, the ballots would sit on a pallet in the front of the clerk's office in the foyer, a big stack of the ballots. And they had a limited number of ballots, and if you needed one, they would have to call the company to try to get you a ballot.
Right.
And so anyway, the printing the ballots on demand is a huge improvement, and I mean, it made things go so much easier. So anyway, my hat's off again to Judge Hutchins and Nelson Fiscal Court, because they didn't have to buy those. They didn't have to go along with that. I mean, they did buy new machines, but they didn't have to, and poll books, but they didn't have to go along with the printers. But it was well worth it. And I believe they were mostly reimbursed for the cost of the printers as well later. So it was a win-win, and I think for voters it was a win-win. To know that you're getting the right ballot.
Right, and the early voting, the 3 days of early voting, that is such a boon for people. That makes it so much easier for people to get in and vote. Especially those people who have to work and have to. A Saturday is much easier for them to come in.
Right.
And it really lessens work on everybody because or less having to stand in line on that day, and having a central place at the public library is also a huge boon.
Right.
So I think that there's been doing an excellent job on making it easier for people to vote if they just get out and vote.
Right. Well, yesterday I had intended on voting early, but I never left the house to do it, and so
you do have to leave the house to do it.
I know. So anyway, but rather than go to my precinct, which was at Cox's Creek Elementary, I came on in. I had to come to town anyway. So I voted at the library, and there was a pretty steady flow of voters, and that was heartening to see, because you never want to go to the polls and it be dead, nobody there.
No.
But I think some of the voting precincts, they were pretty slow, but the library is a great place, central place for voting, and that's where I went.
Well, I always do the early voting if I can. Yeah.
Right.
I like to have my vote in the bank already.
Well, my son voted before I did, and I tried to get him to tell me who he voted for so I could vote, so I could cancel out his vote. But he wouldn't tell me, so I'm like, well, okay. Well, he knows my scheme. So anyway, let's. Candy, of course, you won in a landslide, and I know this campaign, as far as I know, was the second highest spending of any Republican House primary race, and there was a ton of money coming in from outside groups, and PAC money doesn't go to your coffers.
No,
they spend that any way they want with advertising, either for you, against you, or for your opponent Andy Stone, or against Andy Stone, however they wish to spend it. And there were some really creative mailers out there, and it kind of left you wondering, well, if there's a rhino in between these two candidates, who is it? And I would dare say neither of you would be considered rhinos. But, in the throes of a campaign, PACs can pretty much say what they want. But anyway, thank you for coming today, and again, congratulations.
Thank you. I just first wanted to say thank you to the people of Nelson County that put their trust in me for another 2 years. I'm excited and look forward to serving you again. We will be setting up some more Community Connect soon to see what priorities that Nelson County needs for legislation to work on over the summer for next session.
Right.
I also want to thank my opponent. He called and congratulated me. I know campaigns are hard, and it's not easy. It's not easy on your family, so I appreciate that.
Well, and and of course Andy has served 12 years on the city school board and been a good he'd been a good advocate on the school board. So he's got good public service behind him. It just didn't work out this time. And we wish him well. And I haven't talked to him. I wondered if he's I know he serves through the end of this year, but I don't know that he had to resign his school board seat.
I'm not sure about that either.
Okay.
I don't, typically, I think the school board races, they have to, I think it's June, isn't it? They have to sign back up.
It's in the summer.
Yeah, so.
Well,
Whether they declare they're going to run again or not. So, I mean, if he had won the office, he would have to resign that.
Right. Well, Candy, I know that this race attracted a lot of attention.
It did, actually, across the state. I mean, there was a lot of eyes on this race last night, so.
And I guess from my perspective, one of the biggest issues was in this race was school choice. But I know you're for school choice, and Andy Stone came out saying that he would vote for the amendment in November, and there was some of the mailers I saw. Wasn't sure that he was how pro-choice pro school choice he was, but and all we had to go on were the statements. And I will tell you one thing: I had a journalist in this race reminded me. A journalism professor reminded me that if you have candidates that agree on everything, you've got one too many candidates. So, but I knew that, and I'd seen the scorecards or whatever from PACs and other groups that you and he shared a lot of common. Had a lot in common in agreement as far as issues.
Yeah, and I think it was a little bit more. It was more than school choice, and I think some of the try to be a little politically correct. Some of the older establishment Republicans. There's a few of us that don't always go along to get along. We speak our minds and we stand up for our constituents no matter what.
Right.
So, and that's not always popular in Frankfort, but I'm hoping we're going to change the culture this year to make it should be about the people.
Right, and I think you and some of the others who were primaried were considered in the so-called Liberty Caucus
Yes.
of the House, and mainly because you don't always go with the flow,
and we believe in less government. I mean, most people don't want the government in their business.
Right.
That's my principles. I believe in less government. I don't like people telling us what we should vote for. I think we should have an opportunity to actually read what we're voting on, and I think our constituents should have that opportunity to read what we're voting on. That way they can call us and give us input on those bills. So.
Right. So, yeah, that's kind of a novel idea that the rules should insist you read legislation before the vote. But anyway,
that's the rule anyway. They just don't follow it.
There you go. There you go.
It's already the rule.
I think we should have at least a 24-hour period to read any legislations going through. And I know it gets chaotic at the end of sessions, and
sure.
Everybody's trying to add their amendments onto other bills and stuff, but it's not right to the people of Kentucky or the Nelson Countyans if we don't know what we're voting on. So I think that was some of the mailers mentioned, I was trying to push an agenda, helping the other team, and it's not about that. It's just about doing the right thing. And like I said from the beginning, I'm not going to compromise my principles, but everybody knows where I stand, but I still work for everyone.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, I told you before the show, my favorite mailer that I received said that you were sweet on President Joe Biden, and it had candy hearts and all this. I thought it was really a creative flyer. I don't know that the message really, it didn't make much sense to me, the message it was trying to suggest, but it was eye-catching. It was pretty in pink. So. It was. Had a nice picture of the president there, but anyway, and that's one I'll save. I usually try to save all the all the flyers that come in during an election, and my wife hates that I'm a pack rat like that. But
and honestly, we have no control over what PAC sends out. There was a PAC that was supporting me that sent out one mailer. I didn't like it. I thought it, was inappropriate. But once a PAC starts supporting you, you don't have a choice over that. But it was really important to read, I think, when you get mailers like that, who's paying for them. So, and there was some that was inappropriate that was paid by other campaigns. So
right, and that was, to me, the most important part was who paid for this mailer. Who's it representing? Is it PAC or campaign mailer? So, but you don't know how many. The average person, I don't know. Do they know to look for who is supporting that?
I really tried to educate people because people were getting frustrated. They was getting so many mailers in, so I was like, look who paid for it, and that's who it's from. But I appreciate my opponent for running, and I know it was really hard, but this was not a normal House campaign cycle. I mean, just the amount of money and stuff, it just was not a normal campaign cycle.
Well, it'll be interesting when the final reports come in, how much outside money came in. But I know, and I don't know what channel it was, Louisville channel. It was probably all of them, but I can't count the number of times I saw the television commercial of Andy Stone's where the voiceover called him rock-ribbed. And I'm like, well, he probably is, but that's not a descriptor you hear very often, that somebody's rock-ribbed. And I'm like, well, how's that filter down into the world of politics? I mean, maybe his physique plays a part, but anyway, that's just me. I'm a political animal, and actually I like getting the mailers. I do, because it's like...
You're probably one of the first constituents I've heard say that.
I love them, and my wife separates them and says, here you go, here's your mail. But because I like to see who the groups are and what the messages are trying to get across. Some of them, and as you might expect, some are more effective than others. The Candy is Sweet on Joe Biden was not a very effective mailer. It was just entertaining, in my book anyway.
One thing I tried to keep my campaign focused on the issues.
Right.
But it is, again.
Well, the PACs, as you and I know Andy have both said, you have no control over how they spend their money and the ads they create and the flyers and whatnot. So, and I know that's got to be frustrating, but those are the rules. PACs don't coordinate with the campaigns.
It's actually illegal for them.
Yeah. Anyway, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I thought as I was there as the precincts were coming in, and you jumped off to an early lead just from the early voting and absentees, and as I said, Andy Stone won 2 precincts, both of them here in the greater Bardstown area. And basically in the footprint of the city school district, and which I'm not surprised because he's well known as a board member, and so that, but there weren't. He won both those precincts, but you won the rest.
And I have to say a thank you to. I have a team. We call them the Candy Canes. It's my ladies that's been helping me out for the last 2 years, and they're just a blessing. And they were out knocking doors, rain, shine, and some of their husbands, the men, we don't call them Candy Canes, but some of their husbands were. I mean, they were just. I'm very grateful for the team that I've been blessed with, the volunteer team. So.
And you had a lot of people writing letters to the editor.
Well, a lot of them I didn't know about. I mean, it was letters from, it was kind of a grassroots. People was just sending letters in, so. But I do appreciate it. And like I said, my job is to serve everyone, and I look forward to doing it again. And it's going to be an interesting couple of years, and I'm excited.
Let's see.
I do think that the prevalence of PAC money has really distorted campaigning. Of course, I lay it all back onto the Supreme Court of saying that businesses have, that businesses are people, and therefore they can put all the money they want to in on campaigns.
Well, and actually
I
goes-
think that it skews things. It's definitely raised the price of campaigns, and it gives a group that doesn't really have to define themselves. They don't have to say who puts money in that PAC. And it gives them undue influence in all elections.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing up at Frankfurt as well. We have special interest and lobbyist groups that spend a massive amount of money, and it skews other smaller groups that can't have a voice, or the people.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of changes that we need to make.
All right.
Well, I mean, as long as it's a group of people, citizens who are getting together and making their PAC is one thing. It's another thing when you have these huge corporations or special interests who are contributing to these PACs and that they don't tell who they're really representing.
Margie, don't be so tough on the Jefferson County teachers.
They are people representing themselves. They're not representing.
But their money was funneled
Monthly.
through at least one PAC and probably a couple.
Yeah. Well.
But of course, again,
I mean,
they are. But,
there are people looking out for their livelihood.
Well, right.
And by the
that's-
way, teachers get paid in Kentucky about $10,000 less than teachers in our surrounding states. So they certainly need somebody talking for them. Right?
Well, I don't know. That's true, but I don't know how that breaks down as far as Jefferson County teachers. I don't know. As much money goes into Jefferson County schools because they have such a massive system.
Right.
I would think Jefferson County would pay better than the average.
Well, no, I'm talking about the average in Kentucky.
Right.
I'm not talking about the average in Jefferson County.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and of course, the teachers union was fired up over the school choice issue, and so.
Or the school funding issue.
Well, same difference. Same difference. And so, well, Candy, you will be in the legislature next year when the enabling legislation was crafted regarding school choice. It provided that
That
the
it
amendment
passes in November.
Yeah. I suspect we'll see a campaign in support of and to defeat.
I think it will be a very expensive on both sides.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we really have to wait and see what the people decide in
Right.
November. But it's going to have to be carefully crafted, and there's going to be a lot that goes into it. But I've never hid the fact that I'm a school choice advocate. I think every parent should have a right to send their child to what fits their needs.
All right, well, Candy, we need to stop and take a break. You're listening to Bradford and Brooks and our very special guest, Candy Massaroni, who just won re-election yesterday. We'll be back in just a few minutes with more. Stay tuned. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks, Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford, and our very special guest, Candy Massaroni, who won re-election to the 50th District House seat. And it's been a long time coming. This election period has seemed quite long. I know, and I know it has to for you too.
Yeah, well, we came out of a long session straight into the election cycle,
Right.
so it's been a long couple of months. So
Well, it's over at least for the next 2 years.
yes,
And Candy, I think that, and again, these are my assumptions, that the first term legislator is generally the easiest if you're going to have somebody oppose you. It's after that first term. So obviously, from the results of the election, you've made an impact on the county, and there was no interest in changing legislators at this time.
well, like I said, I'm very grateful that the people has allowed me to represent them again. And I think we have been extrally involved in the communities. We've tried to at least every community twice to go out and just see what the people want, see what the people need, and just to talk to the constituents, because a lot of these smaller communities, they feel neglected, rightfully so.
Sure.
So, it's just been amazing just to get out and, some of them will have 50 people, some will have 5 or 10 people, but it gives people an opportunity to come out and meet all their elected officials and get whatever they need off their chest, or just suggestions or whatever, and let us tell them what we're doing for them. So
Right.
I think that did, it helped with getting our message out, because people already knew us. We've been out in the community, so.
Well, Margie, there were other races on the ballot. Any thoughts about the other races? I know there was uncommitted in the presidential, both
Yes.
Democrat and Republican presidential races.
In Kentucky, some statistics on that said that for Trump, there were about 14% who voted for other than Trump, and of that, 6.4% voted for Nikki Haley, who had dropped out of the race, and actually it was a bigger percentage than she had gotten in, I've forgotten which state it was that she was still on the ballot, had gotten it, so her support had kind of grown. 3.5% voted as uncommitted, and 3.1%, which was Ron DeSantis, voted for Ron DeSantis and a couple of other minor candidates, so about 14%. For Biden, I wasn't able to find all of the information, but it said that there was a total of 18% who voted uncommitted and others. So there was an actual uncommitted vote. So uncommitted has, we tend to forget that in the primary, we are not actually voting for the candidate.
Right.
We are voting, it's political parties who are voting to choose their candidate for the fall election. And so you're voting for an elector, a member of the Electoral College,
Right.
who will vote on that. So you have the people who, if you voted for Biden or Trump, either one, then you were voting for an elector for them.
Right.
But if you didn't want to commit, you still control an electoral vote, and so you can vote either uncommitted or pledge to someone else. You don't have to vote. You're not actually voting for the president themselves. So it makes for interesting reading, and also that I think the uncommitted vote is greater this time than it has been in the past. So, there were a lot more implications on the ballot than we like to think.
Right. Well, I think the numbers you've quoted statewide are pretty much mirror the figures in Nelson County in both parties, as far as Trump and Biden, and Nikki Haley coming in as the second most, the second highest vote getter.
The other thing that I had read, and this doesn't have anything to do with the primary, was that I just was reading this morning on Market Watch that the headline was the U.S. stock market at this time predicts on the presidential election. And it said by going by the economy measured by the real GDP, Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index, that's a tongue twister, and the University of Michigan's Sentiment Survey. And they correlated their findings with that of what the stock market is doing. And so it said correlated to the incumbent chances of winning the presidential election are for Biden 58.8%. So I thought that was really interesting. that how the stock market is doing, because they had predicted a recession that didn't happen, and actually prices are coming down, and but most importantly, the stocks have gone up and in fact reached their highest point, I think a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, that's just kind of interesting, I thought.
Something I forgot to mention in the state representative race is that just like 2 years ago, it was on the ballot a three-way race, because Don Thrasher had filed as a candidate and then later withdrew, but not quickly enough to get his name off the ballot. However, in Nelson County, he only, he got 95 votes, so that really wasn't a factor either way, unlike 2 years ago. But anyway, and interesting side note, a story about this race that I saw incorrectly said that you were the winner in a three-way race 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there were three candidates,
yes.
but it was not a three-way race. But anyway, just as an aside, political geeks like me and Margie, kind of thrive on that stuff. But and if you're a journalist, you don't know the area, and you're looking at the state, the past voting you totals, you see that, you think, well, it was three-way. No, it was not. But I wouldn't expect an out-of-area journalist to know that. Margie, it kind of restored my faith in elections, but I will tell you, I was still disappointed we didn't have more people come out. I understand why Democrats didn't turn out as much, but there'll be a much larger ballot in November.
Right.
And I think we'll have school board and city councils and lots of other races on the ballot.
Right. Well, the cost of elections, which I've railed on more than one occasion.
Right.
I think it make it very difficult for the ordinary person to run, and that discourages people. And also I think that the Democratic Party as a whole, as an association, have not concentrated on giving local candidates money. So they haven't had much encouragement to run. So it's kind of helped to result in a dearth of Democratic candidates coming out, facing a super majority that's already there in the.
Well, but I asked one of our prominent Democrats before the filing deadline if the Democratic Party was going to field a candidate for state representative.
I can tell you they tried.
Oh, I'm sure, but the answer I got from him was, well, nobody wants to waste their money. And I thought, well, that's not, it's not, there's no guarantees when you run as a candidate. No. But, and me, I'm in favor of divided government. I think things are better when you have representatives.
In that case, you should vote Democratic.
Well, I can't. I'm not a member of the party.
Oh, yes, you can vote. There's general election coming up.
Well, I know, but I don't know. I think my presidential choice is going to be RFK Jr., but that's for another show.
We can really get in on that one.
I ought to bring my son in because he gets all bent out of shape about some of RFK's stances on issues. But anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I think you do too, but you and my son may have a lot to agree with. All right. Anyway, we're getting down to the wire. We've got about 10 minutes left. Candy, or any other thoughts? I mean, it has to be a big sigh of relief to have it done.
It is. It's been an interesting race, like I said. It's there was a lot of interesting mailers and texts and stuff. It was definitely interesting, and I am very thankful that it's over, and I look forward to just start serving again. So, and I think my family is relieved that it's over as well. So,
well, we look forward to having you back in the state legislature. Well, Margie, I guess our next election will be in November, and I don't know what do you think drives voter turnout? Because of course, we had more Republicans, but still, there's 16,000 plus registered Republicans, and I think we had just over 3,000 Republican voters turn out.
I think, if I can speak up on this,
sure.
I think on the primary, we kind of knew who the Democratic nominee for president is going to be. We knew who the Republican nominee is. And we didn't. We had Thomas Massey in one district, and I think that district actually did a little bit better. So I think you got more variety on the ballot. It helps people, but I think people already kind of knew who the nominees for president is, and they just wasn't as motivated to get out.
I think that.
But we did have a better turnout in Nelson County, and I'm very grateful for that for Nelson County than the state.
I think it was 15.7.
Yeah, and I think the state average
And
was
about 13
13.
Something, yeah.
And again, thanks to the hardworking poll workers, the volunteers.
Absolutely.
My wife had a very long day. She was a poll worker at Bardstown Middle
I actually
School.
saw it early in the morning.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
That's right. So anyway, those volunteers are absolutely necessary and appreciated. And of course, then you have all the staff at the clerk's office. So I think they're all getting a little rest today too,
I hope
because
so.
their day began about 5 a.m. and didn't end until.
You got to be there, but you got to be there. You got to be working by 6 o'clock.
Yeah. And so their day didn't end until after I left, about 8:30. So it was a very long day for everybody involved.
And Miss Sidebottom, she does a great job. She really does.
All right.
Well, we're just talking politics in general here too. Did you have a chance to read the column by Al Cross? I guess column by Al Cross
No. Is that in a printed paper, or was it online?
It was online.
Okay.
Well, since I get my paper online, I can't remember whether it was.
Yeah.
No, it was from the Courier Journal.
Okay.
It was from the Courier Journal, but I get it online, so
Right.
I had to print it off.
So you don't have
that
to
way.
wait 3 days to get it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Well, I was talking about the fact that Kentucky was, solidly Democratic for so long, and also our history of the Republican governors haven't fared too well, even as the electorate was turning Republican, and some of the factors that went into that, and also about how the party is now and should be or should work on doing. So anyway, I thought it was really interesting that we could maybe talk about that sometime.
Right, and it's interesting that the Republicans hold all the constitutional offices except governor.
Right,
But-
and I mean that's what it's talking about. That there's that middle ground there that exists.
Right, and but as crazy as it might sound from a Republican, I still think we need bipartisanship.
Oh, I think we do
and
too, because-
we need rules that allow for debate and discussion.
Well, you know what they say: power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if a group can be bullied, can be bullies. And no one stops them, then they tend to be more bullies. They bullier is the thing.
Well, I think there's a group of legislators, like a group of us that a lot of money went against the whole group, and every one of us won. The people that was standing up for, changing some of the rules and making it more equal and just for fairness to actually be able to read bills and allow every legislator to have an opportunity to present a bill. So everyone that the bigger money groups went after, every one of us won last night in the House.
I wondered how that was going statewide.
I think mine was by the lowest percentage. Some of them won by like 75, 80%.
Wow.
So So it does. It's interesting how much money went into it, and the people spoke. They didn't like that sort of thing. So across the state.
Well, our discussions last night, there by the media table, there was a lot of discussion that the impact that the negative mailers have, and that the general consensus was that usually it's going to turn people off. It's may not bode well for the candidate. It's difficult to unseat an incumbent, even a freshman legislator, if you will, because you've had the opportunity to serve. And and I've said this before, I had a number of people say, well, that of the work you'd done on their behalf. And I think that spoke more than any PAC mailer could,
And that PAC was really interesting. The chamber had a lot to do. The Kentucky chamber, not the local chamber.
Right.
They had a lot to do with it. And there was actually the guy over the Kentucky chamber. His name's John Cox, and he was paying. His brother was the consultant for it. He was getting $10,000 a month to put out a lot of these negative ads against all of us. So it was an interesting little circle there, and I think they may use a different strategy next time because it was across the state with some of the negative and nasty stuff coming out. So.
Well, if you've got a PAC, you almost have to try to tie things to a national or bigger issue, because the PAC won't know the individual counties in those issues. So that's tying the candidates to presidential hopeful Trump or to Biden, as a negative. I don't. To me that's not effective. But you're looking to influence voters who may not, who may see that and wonder, because you're just trying to establish doubt that they're the candidate to vote for if they vote.
And I think a lot of the primary candidates, the people go out and actually vote in primaries, they're a little more informed, I think, and so I think a lot of them saw through some of the attack mailers. So.
Right. Well, Margie, we got about 2.5 minutes left. What's on the agenda for our upcoming show
next week we have Kenny Fogel.
That's right.
The chairman of the Democratic Party here in Nelson County.
And do you think we'll talk about politics then?
And I think the little politics will be being discussed. So anyway, he's our special guest on that.
Well, and I just from what I've seen on social media, I know that he worked hard to try to recruit someone to be a candidate in the House race. Right,
he did, and we did we did almost have a candidate, but then it turned out they couldn't do it because it would mean losing their job.
Right.
That they couldn't afford to lose.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's not that the desire isn't there, but there are things in the way.
Well, just in jest, I'll have to tell Kenny that maybe he should, the Democratic Party should try a ploy that the Republicans tried, and you get a candidate to convert party, have your Democrat become a Republican, and then run as a Republican in the Republican primary to try to get your candidate elected. So, of course, that didn't fare well the last time that was tried. So,
no.
Anyway, I'm being snarky. I'm sorry.
Oh, I hadn't noticed.
All right. No. Well, we'll have Kenny on. That'll be a good. It'll be a kind of a throwback for me when this show was was Brooks and Ken. So, and Kenny and I used to go after each other pretty roughly, But of course, all I had to do back in those days was tell Kenny, I think George W. Bush is the best president we've ever had in this century. And that's all I had saying. It would light Kenny up for the next 30 minutes.
Well, no, I can imagine. I mean, Lord, you can spend 30 minutes talking about the Iran war.
That's right. All right, we're out of time. Thanks for listening, everybody. The video will be up on YouTube by the end of the week. Have a great week, everybody. That's it for Bradford and Brooks.
Hometown.